Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of the FinTech Finance Virtual Arena. Today we're going to be talking about payment trends in Asia Pacific. And we're going to really be looking closely at the innovation type behind this revolution that's happening. So joining me, I have Eli Shoshani from Bottomline. How are you doing, Eli? All good where you are?
Thank you very much, Eli. I'm here based in Singapore in Asia and Bottomline office, and very proud to be as part of these sessions. Being in Bottomline for over 3 years and being in Asia for the last almost 20 years, living in Singapore and in China. So it's, and especially in this industry. So it's quite interesting to come and to have this kind of a topic that have been developed over the last 20 years, very, very fast and dramatically. So looking forward and interesting.
Definitely, it really has changed so much in the last couple of years. And we also have Medhy Souidi joining us from DBS Hong Kong. Medhy, how are you doing today? Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your role at DBS Hong Kong?
Hi everyone, thank you very much for having me here. Everything is perfect. The weather is wonderful in Hong Kong, 3 months of sun right now. The situation with the COVID is better than a few weeks ago. And we can see a lot of progress also in terms of innovation from different vertical of fintechs such as virtual banks, payments, but also regulation.
Absolutely brilliant. So I really want to kind of start, guys, from a macro perspective to kind of set the groundwork for the discussion. So can I go to you, Eli, first? Can we look at the kind of macro state of payments innovation between Singapore and Hong Kong and look at your individual region as in Singapore and why that's become a payments innovation hub?
So I think you can't see only Singapore is considered for many, many years like the Switzerland of the East, right? That's where you have more safe and secure type of things to handle your money and to hold it in a very secure way. On the same time, there was always a competition between Singapore and Hong Kong. Hong Kong was ruling by the British in the later centuries and coming up as moving into China as they innovated. So both of the countries kind of head-to-head was who can be more innovative and more be able to host more banks in it. That's why you see a lot of financial institutions and a lot of private bankings and others that's based in both of the countries and try to settle them between of them, where are they going to do it and how they're going to be able to serve the customer best for the European or the American-based companies in the region, as well as the one that's based in Asia as well. So it's not just Singapore, it's a safe harbor for a lot of banks. It used to be also Hong Kong and other countries that try now to compete. We can see that there's some trend coming up from Thailand, trying to take some major role in this one. We can see Australian banks that's acting as a regional players and not as a global players. So you can see banks like ANZ, banks like NAB or Respex are actually acting as a regional players in all of Asia. So they have quite a lot of establishment in the regions. And on the same time, you see the Singaporean banks making a role. DBS, for example, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later. I mean, DBS is also taking a role of a regional bank and playing in quite a lot of countries in this part of the world. So you can see trend of global banks, regional banks, and local banks in each one of them playing a different role for different needs, for different segment of the market.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to kind of segment the industry because, as you said, we've seen these major European banks have a big part in Singapore, but also these very innovative local banks in Singapore also moving innovation along. Now, Medhy, one thing that always strikes me to Hong Kong, obviously, is that shared heritage, as Eli mentioned, but also there's a very strong banking infrastructure in Hong Kong. So would you agree with Eli that there is in the same way in Hong Kong, there are the large international banks, but also innovative local banks playing a very interesting role?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a very good point raised here by Eli. I want to say also that fintech is kind of often associated to payment services, and a country like Singapore and Hong Kong did a lot of effort with the different industry and also with the regulators. So for example, in Hong Kong and Singapore, we have a high efficient and diversified and very inclusive payment ecosystems right now with fast payment solutions. So in Hong Kong, the name is the faster payment system, where you can pay in a blink of an eye, anytime, anywhere. You have the same thing in Singapore. The name is a bit different, but those two places have their international places for businesses are really interesting in terms of driving the ecosystem to something more digital, seamless, and also without friction for actors such as companies, but also customers.
Brilliant. Now, we've discussed what kind of has kind of led to this innovative payments and fintech hub within these two nations. So, if we were to look at payments in particular, why, Medhy, can I ask, why do you think innovation has been so centered in Hong Kong itself?
So you have different reasons. The first thing is Hong Kong is one of the biggest places in terms of finance in the world. We have like more than 222 banks licensed in Hong Kong, but it's still a small place with 7 million of people. We're kind of I want to say a small island here next to a giant countries such as China, Vietnam, Thailand, and to stay competitive and bring the best application and process in finance, we still need to innovate a lot. So, for example, the HKMA has pushed many banks to collaborate through different really interesting process, such as an exchange of data between the bank on the local market. We have also a blockchain platform named eTrade Connect, connecting banks with the Public Bank of China, the Bank of People of China, to collect the data on the trade finance platform, for example. HKMA is really proactive to support all these companies to have access to multi-currency and multi-dimensional platforms to link the payment system to other countries. So we can see that differently from Europe. Asia is still really fragmented. We have a lot of currencies, we have a lot of central different banks, we have a lot of regulations, but all the countries are pushing for more collaborative approach, and they would like to, I think, to give to all the customers and enterprise the experience that we can live in Europe, where everyone is using euro and have no problem to make a cross-border payment between the countries.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, hearing about fragmentation in the area. So, Eli, can I ask your perspective from Bottomline? I know you do a lot of work when it comes to cross-border payments and everything like that. How does Singapore set itself apart in this fragmented section? What does that mean for cross-border payments and payments innovation itself?
So, as you know, when we're talking about payments, different types of payment that we're talking the cross-border payment, we're talking the local payments, we're talking the faster payments, we're looking at credit card payments. There's a lot of different segmented type of payments that we're talking about. And where we're looking for the innovations is, either we following the trends that are happening in Europe, for example, the faster payments that happened in Europe and then came to Singapore, followed by Hong Kong, had the thing to do, or the Australian NPP. And on the same times, we see the cross-border payments that's traditionally done by the SWIFT, but now it's opened the market into more other players like Visa B2B, as well as Ripple and other players that come in and join this kind of a rail of providing the services of this one. When you come to payments, it needs to be in a way that, we used to have T+1, T+2 payments. But as we know, people send money, send FedEx, send a box, it arrives sometimes in the same days. Amazon Prime give you the delivery on the same days. Amazon can give you on the next day delivery. So why we can't deliver a payment instantly? What is holding us? So you need to be, in a way, very innovative in order to, first of all, to do all the risk mitigations around the payments. Make sure that when you deliver the payments, it's arrived to its destinations. Be able to confirm of receiving, because of a box of $20, we'll be able to track it every moment, and we know exactly where it is. But when we send $1 million, we don't know where it is, and we're looking for that one. So innovation comes into the idea. Let's have a track. Let's give a record. Let's confirm that I received. So it started with the faster payments in Singapore, fast, Hong Kong, HKMA with HKICL that we're doing, Australia, NPP, in Thailand, in Malaysia. So we can see the trend is coming up. And the same thing we'll see with regardings to cross-border payments. That is, in order to do that, you must be innovative. You must use latest technology. You must to be able to follow all the compliances, because we're not talking, so compliances, AML, sanction screenings that you have to do. Secure payment, you need to secure the payments before it leaves into the network, because it's very hard to reverse it. So as for us, as Bottomline, we need to provide all these tools to the banks for them to feel secure in the way they do it in a very simple way that they can do it, and a very smart by using an AI technology, using sophisticated technology in order to provide this thing to do it. So you have to be as a combined. So in Bottomline, we like to say it is a simple, it's smart, and it's a very secure when you put your payment across the border where you go.
Interesting. And well, Medhy, if I could then throw that to you to get DBS's view on that. When it comes to looking at that payment innovation, do you think looking at the new technologies are fostering that new innovation, like artificial intelligence? I don't want to say it's a new technology, but it's being widely used by the banks now. Or do you think it's been from customer demand to make these payments more innovative, quicker and secure?
Good question. I think in the past few years, fintech has advanced by leaps and bounds. It's bringing an immense and convenience to our daily life, such as Netflix, Uber, or as I mentioned just before, Amazon. Online shopping and e-payment, and also transfer, as well as online banking services, has become part of our daily life, right? Like, it's not only in Asia, but it's also in Europe and USA. And at the same time, the technological breakthrough of the recent years have presented, I want to say, turning points in addressing some of the pain points of the customers. So by using, for example, APIs, you can fast track all those processes and make the payment real time, and you can track it as well. So there is two things. It's relationship with the customers of our customers, because sometimes we're doing a lot of design thinking workshop with them to understand what are their needs and how we can support them to deliver the best services and make the reconciliation, for example, when they receive payment from an invoice, kind of easy and not going through Excel document and emails reconciliation manually.
Interesting. And Medhy, earlier on in the chat, you actually just talked about the fact that there's lots of regulation, but no united regulation in the area when it comes to kind of creating that seamless situation. So, at DBS, how do you look at creating innovation across different regions when there is no regulatory body at large?
So the thing is, especially in Asia, if you have a company and you're working from, like, for example, you want to do a transfer or different banking services between Hong Kong and Singapore, inside the same group is not that difficult, because you will have the local teams working closely to the regulators, MIS for Singapore, HKMA for Hong Kong. The difficulty is where, for your customer, you want to help them to, for example, do cross-border payment in different countries with different entities. So for us, I think the first thing as a group is collaboration between the teams. So we have a lot of workshops and the regulators. So for example, recently we got a couple of meetings with the regulators in Hong Kong to discuss about their new initiatives that we are involved with them, and see what is the future blueprint of this initiative, how we can collaborate more and bring sometimes our expertise from the different other countries where we have, for example, corporate identity or different kind of digital pass for customers that you can have in Singapore and not yet in Hong Kong.
Absolutely brilliant. And if we move it back towards payments a bit, then Eli, we see, especially because of that fragmented situation, local payment methods, especially in Asia, are incredibly innovative especially for businesses. So, how are we going to see those local payment methods come together if there's no united that payments language or there's no specific regulatory board? How can we bring that together? And do you think customers or businesses even want that? Or do they want to be able to still operate with their local payment methods, but just have the bank effectively enable the payment anyway?
So we saw a few years back that the Asian countries were trying to build a kind of a Euro ecosystems. That's where the banks in Asia will trade with a free trading of movement of people, free trade, and be able to track money. And they even assigned the central banks of Malaysia to be the one holding it. The issue was, what currency are we handling? It's not like in Europe that we have one currency to handle it. We have a multi-currency in Asia, and how we're going to trade. This initiative didn't really go through as people were expected to go, and how that it works. But you can see that there are some pockets that leading the market. Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia was leading this kind of a market of the local payment. We saw at the same time in China, where Synapse 2 and now Synapse 3 is actually handling this connectivity with the local payments. And we saw other players trying to come and jump in, which are not exactly 100% banks, like people like Alipay and people like WeChat was trying to get some activity in the local payment that they're trying to do, or even Grab in Singapore was trying to do. In order to avoid it, this regulatory create the digital banking type of thing that will allow non-bank participations to come in to do it and play at this kind of a play that they do it. So we can see a lot of trend that people are moving from traditional banking industry into more fast, be able local payments that you'll be able to pay either with you pay with a card or pay with your phone, or you pay between person-to-person payments. That today you will be able to do this kind of a payment. Even pay to institutions, you can pay it immediately. And DBS has introduced a pay now concept that they be able to do and immediately come up with this innovative type of things that you can pay anywhere that you want. And in Singapore, that's pay minutes through your mobile numbers or to your ID numbers or to your company numbers, be able to do it without having a bank account, the whole detail set behind it. But the whole innovations behind this technology enable the persons or the SME to be able to make payments today in a faster way. So we can see a lot of ways of new technology coming up. We can see it as the use of instant. We are in generation that people want pay now, pay immediately. They want to see the transaction now because every second is count, rather than we used to do in a long time times ago. At the same time that we see why there's a common digital banks, man. So a threat to DBS, right? In a way that they're coming up with, they don't need so many branches, they don't need so much infrastructure behind it, and they're using innovations in order to come in to do so. So DBS must be, and that's what they're doing, to be all the time innovating in order for them to be ahead of the games if they want to stay relevant.
Well, Medhy, there was quite a gauntlet thrown down to you with that statement, but I completely agree. I mean, we're seeing Weixin and Grab in Singapore. How do you marry those local payment methods? And is DBS even looking to do that? Is that something that actually needs to happen? Because ultimately, is customer choice the ultimate decider when it comes to payment innovation?
Good question. I think it's something that our CEO has discussed a lot in the past. So we don't want to become a super app, and I think it's really hard as well, and this is my personal view, to consume financial services such as we consume transportation or delivery of food and beverage. So the super apps like WeChat and Grab, they have many services and they are really convenient. But what can do a bank is to become a kind of invisible, and that's what we are doing at DBS, becoming invisible banking. So in a way, what we are doing is we create all our banking services through APIs, and we connect ourselves, we embed ourselves into this ecosystem. So, for example, when you make a payment with Grab to order your taxi or maybe to deliver your food, you don't really care as a customer how you do the transfer of money. It's super simple on your phone. You just add your Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, or whatever Google Pay that you have, and it's done directly, or maybe with your credit card. So all those kind of banking services behind are done by DBS, for example. We have some partnerships. We are also collaborating on what we call ecosystems. It's how we can exchange financial services with our customers, but also we have an exchange of data, because we want to deliver the best and greatest banking services through the data we can collect with our partners. So, for example, if we have a partners who has DBS client and client of DBS, also client of the partners, how we can both collaborate together and bring an added value. So that is more than 1 + 1 = 2, but is 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 for the customers.
Brilliant. And Eli, if we could then look from more of a kind of from the small customer to the large business customer that a lot of banks have to cater to as well in this market. What is the adoption of ISO 20022 like in Asia? Are there any leaders in the area in this regard? And what's this going to mean for businesses and banks going forward?
So ISO 2022 is bring to these games a lot of innovation things, because the enrichments of the message, moving from MT to MX, the meanings that allow you to provide more information and more data on the message itself. And while you're adopting this type of technology, is give to the banks and to the user more visibility, more information being transferred, more data to be able to use, even we're talking about an AI or all type of things. So, for example, one of the challenges for us as a Bottomline is how to convert the MT messages into the MX messages using our transformation layers and things to do it. What it can help the banks to come and to be ahead, because the regulatory now forcing everyone to be ahead of the game. So we can see a trend in Asia that the banks is adopting these ones. Fortunately, Hong Kong was supposed to be in 2021, supposed to be launched, but they decided to postpone it to 2023, or even will postpone it later to 2025. But we can see trend in the various countries where Singapore is one of the leaders. It's coming up to adopt this technology, but we see it in Malaysia, in Thailand. They're moving to the ITMX type of things to move into this new formats. We can see it in Vietnam, changing this type of things. All of them in different stages. We believe by 2025, most of the Asian markets will be ISO 2022 coming up and will be one of the common leaders in these regions. And due to the fact that, as we said before, it's a multicultural, multi-country, multi-currency happening in here, and you must enrich the message in a much better way than it was designed in the 70s. Empty messages were designed in the 70s. We are in the 21st centuries and we're still using the same format, 70 fields, that's all. Now we use an XML format, is give us and open us a lot of information, especially for us as the technology providers, that we be able to give more and more information to the clients, and able for them, without them need to go and to develop by themselves, right? And without them any to go into the core, we can take it whatever they have and change it in a faster way.
Absolutely brilliant. And Medhy, if I could then throw that to you, looking at the bank side of things, because obviously a lot of businesses are having to change the way they operate. Small, medium enterprises, especially in Asia, are so important to the backbone of the economy. So, what does that mean of the speed of innovation when it comes to payments? And can you tell us a bit more about how you look at DBS Hong Kong to partner with other organizations in this an innovative time, but also quite fractured part of the industry?
Oh, so if we speak about startups and innovation, one of my responsibilities is to look at new business model. This is really interesting. I look not only for a bank, but I look at the perspective of how a company can disrupt an entire business model or industry, such as, for example, the healthcare or the real estate. And if you want an example, you can take a look at how you pay parking right now. across the world is mostly with coins, or you need to buy a kind of membership or specific cards. But can you do it directly with your phone without contact, or can you do it remotely as you order a Uber? So it's something I'm looking at, and I'm looking at how we can collaborate with one, the startup, and two, our different clients, and bring the startup to our clients, but in the same time, how we can increase our reach to the startup with our banking services. So how we can deliver to them cash management solutions, how we can deliver to them fast payment solutions. And if the company is also in different countries, as we just mentioned, it's multi-currency, so how we can deliver the best FX APIs possible on the market. So we are looking at this in a way, and we also got the influence from China and also the HKMA on everything related to central bank digital currency right now. So how you can create yuan, how you can create Hong Kong dollars or Singapore dollars in the future. Those topics are really hot right now for banks, and we are looking at those specific new payment methods coming through the coming years as something really challenging, but also really exciting.
That sounds like such a brilliant future for payments, especially. So, I mean, Eli, then, if I could ask you for then your opinion of what you think the future of payments in Asia looks like. And do you think we're going to see those e-renminbi become used across the whole region? And do you think that ecosystems are going to prevail and ultimately foster innovation in payments like we have seen?
So first of all, I see a very bright future for the payment innovation in Asia. And the reason is that it's moving very, very fast. And I can tell you that in the near future, we already seeing it, that we are not going to talk only about real currency. We're going to play more and more about the digital currencies and the virtual currency coming up. And this is going to be part of the rail that where we need to make payments, right? Even today, you can already pay with Bitcoin, right? You can make payment with Bitcoin. You can make pay with virtual currency already. It's happening. If I ask you 10 years ago, they will say no one will use Bitcoin. It's going to disappear. It's kind of it's a fraud type of thing. But slowly, we can see more and more banks start to adopt it. Organization adopt it. There are too many people involved in these virtual currencies. And we just see what's happening in the last few weeks to the digital currencies in the world. So it's a shame we didn't invest on the right time 10 years ago, but this is the situation today. But what we're saying is while we're talking about virtual currency and multi-currencies, we also talk about how we're going to do it. So the platform of using the ISO 2022 is going to be the backbone that we will have to use all this type of rail. Even if we go into blockchain and we talk about the DLT type of things, is going to use in the end of the day the ISO 2022. And we need to build and to prepare these ones to cross-border and to real type things that we be able to take any type of things of message in any format and to be able to convert it to the right format, that be able everybody to be what we call it's a common language, you know, and in technology we used to say we'll use the same ITCP, right? If we're not talking about the right languages, we'll not be able to communicate to each other. So we need to bring everyone, and that's what we do in Bottomline and this stuff. So right.
Absolutely brilliant, guys. I think that's all we have time for. But thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, and to all our viewers as well. You can catch the rest of the series and much more over at www.fintechf.com. Thank you very much. Goodbye.